Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Etchart, Interim Director of Orientation Programs. Before we get started with the rest of the presentation, I just wanted to note we had a little technical issue and we recorded an hour, but unfortunately our session went a little long, and so we only caught the last hour in the recording. We are including the PowerPoint presentation slides on the new student and supporters websites. So if you're not there, you can navigate to the link to find those slides. Most of the information is overview information, but you might want to take a look at the second slide, which has some specifics about housing and residence life's approach to COVID-19, what we know. That might be helpful before you listen to the Q&A. On to the presentation.
A little bit about residence hall amenities. So what do we have in each building? So we have our service desk. So that's when you come to check in, that's where you're gonna go. That's where you'll get your mail, your packages, various equipment, although we may not have all equipment available for this year. That's also where you go if you get locked down. We have education centers, and that's 24-hour study areas. There may be some restrictions on space usage this year. Along with those, we have printing and computer labs in those same spaces. We have common area kitchens. Those may be closed for fall quarter. Music and game rooms will also be closed for fall quarter, but we do have them and we are looking forward to reopening them for our students. We have Ethernet and wireless throughout campus, and I would suggest if you want to know, should I get Ethernet, should I get wireless? Most computers come with both these days. And you're going to want the Ethernet when you're in your room because it is faster. We also provide a micro fridge in each room, and this is a combination microwave, refrigerator, and freezer. So that's not something you need to bring. In fact, you are not supposed to bring another refrigerator, but that's in all of our rooms except for the apartments where they have full kitchens. We have laundry facilities in each community, and then we also have our great, fantastic custodial and maintenance staff. Who this year will be making appointments to perform maintenance in student rooms if there's an issue, just so that they can make sure for both the student safety and their safety. A little bit about laundry. It's an app-based activation, so it's through the app Pay range. You can download that, you add a balance, and then you can go ahead and turn it on from your smartphone. If you do not have a smartphone, we have some devices at the desk where you can log in and out of and make your own account. Copying and printing is throughout our entire campus. It's an SU print queue. $7.50 is added to each student's account before the term to give them some free printing. Anything in excess of that, they will need to purchase extra. And then storage, we actually have a storage unit on our campus. It's urban storage. It's the same building as the bookstore. It has good rates for our students and it's very convenient. We also work with dorm room movers who can do pickup and drop off shipping and storage for our residents. Okay, a little bit about meal plans and dining, and I'm not going to go through every different location, but our dining will be operating this year. They are putting in some different plans that I'll talk about in a second to assist our students. But a couple of things to know, we have our main Cherry Street Market. So that's the one on the second floor of the Student Center. Many of you have probably eaten there before. And that's the one that has lots of different stations, including an allergen station for students who have various issues. In addition, we have the bistro, the Cave, which is in Campion Hall, which is a convenience store, but also has hot food. Then we have the Bite, the Sidebar, and the Bottom Line, which do a lot of different foods, but they also are coffee shops. The main thing to keep in mind with your meal plans is these are declining balance. $250 rolls over from one quarter to the next, but at the end of the year, it goes away. So you do need to make sure that you use it for the end of the year. Okay, so some of the changes that dining is doing to respond to the COVID-19 crisis is they're going to either follow or exceed all CDC and local Seattle guidelines for cleaning. So some of these will also include reduced seating. So you'll still be able to eat in some of these spaces, but there'll be less people. They're going to have capacity limits for the entire area. They'll also have line staging, so that's where you're going to have to be standing 6 feet from people. Even though they've already had protection for the food, they're going to have additional plexi shields to minimize face-to-face contact. They also have an app where you can order online and order your food ahead of time. We're already their highest percentage use campus for that, but that's going to continue for this year. They're also going to be offering some grocery delivery service to your buildings that will really assist students. And then they're going to have an enhanced grab and go selection and a significantly enhanced cleaning schedule. Hey, Tyler.
Hey. Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Murphy. I'm the Assistant Director for Housing Services. So I oversee all of the general occupancy management for our residence halls, as well as all of our front desk operations. So I'm going to talk a little bit about roommates, the roommate search process, and roommate pairing. So on the housing portal, when students log on to sign up or to apply for housing, once the application is done, students are able to search for potential roommates. You can search roommates by web name. So if you know of someone who is coming to Seattle U and you'd like to sign up to live with them, you can request that specific person. Another thing that you can do is you can view other potential matches based on the specific page on the application where you've filled out questions about what time you wake up, what time you go to bed, study habits, lifestyle habits, things like that. And you're able to see a lot of different students that match up closely to the same answers that you gave. And you're able to message each other back and forth. And then once you find, once you find someone that you think would be a good compatible roommate, you can request that person, and then you can make that official roommate group with that person. And that's how you can go about selecting a specific roommate. However, this is not a requirement on the application. So if you aren't necessarily finding that perfect match for a roommate, or if you don't feel like searching for someone, we do use an algorithm on our housing database to match up roommates based on the answers to those questions on those profile questions, that section of the application. So again, some of the things that we use to match up compatible roommates are sleeping habits, study habits, cleanliness and organization, and activity levels. So all of those things are taken into consideration. The roommate portal has been reopened. We did initially, in our previous messaging to students, say that the roommate searching section was going to be open until July 10th. However, given that we are still in a pending decision on what our double or single occupancy is going to look like, we did keep that section open. So if you're still interested in trying to find a roommate, you can go ahead and still log in and try to find someone still. And then just to give you some stats, about 50% of students allow the university, so our office, to select a roommate on their behalf. Assignments are based on your preference and space availability. And one other thing that we do want to highlight is that roommate requests are priority over building placement. So what that means is if you create a roommate group with someone else, and both of you have different top choices for the building that you'd like to live in, the priority for us is to house both of you together. It may be in one of your building preferences, it may be in the other person's preferences, or it may be a building that you didn't list as a preference because based on feedback in the past, students prefer to live with that person that they've selected. And then building placement is second in our algorithm.
Okay, so I want to talk for a minute a little bit about what is custodial doing on our campus, and in particular in the residence halls, to help ensure safety. So they are doing a lot of additional cleaning and sanitizing, particularly of the public spaces. So any residence hall common areas such as the lobbies, any shared space they are normally cleaned and disinfected daily, but now we've actually gone to where they're doing it twice daily, and in some cases in bathrooms, restrooms, they may end up doing additional if there are heavy usage on a particular day. So they kind of monitor that, and so that they will be doing that. So particularly for the restrooms, but also study areas, lobby and front desk spaces are being cleaned, entries are actually being cleaned, laundry areas, hallways, furniture in public spaces. They have this handy little misting gun that sprays down the furniture every morning so that we can make sure it's been sanitized. And then for high touch point surfaces, so that's like handles in restrooms, various faucets, things like that. They are doing extra cleaning, and they're also using EPA and CDC approved chemicals so that we're keeping it clean and healthy for our students. Okay, so some of the other adjustments that we're making, floor lounges and kitchens are going to be closed. They are smaller spaces, and I know that many of the students will miss having them for this first quarter, but we want to make sure that we're providing the healthiest and safest environment for our students, so that will be closed. We have added a lot of additional hand sanitizing stations throughout the residence halls. We've had them for many years, but there are additional ones that are going up. So most of our lobbies have multiple hand sanitizing stations. We will expect that students wear masks when they are outside of their rooms. And as David mentioned, we will not have any room visitation. So you may be in your room with your roommate, but you and your friends need to meet in more open spaces. And then the furniture in some of the public spaces will be spaced out differently or marked where there's no seating in some cases where we can't move the furniture. So, and then students who are concerned about COVID-19 may request living at home or some other housing option. But I would also suggest, if you want to know more about the university's full response, if you go to ciu.edu/coronavirus, and then there's also a Safe Start link on there. But this can give you kind of the overall university's plan and everything that we're doing kind of across campus. Okay, a little bit about some packing hints. So again, as David mentioned, the resident handbook, I would go see that. It does have some information on that. I will also be sending you a more extensive list in your email fairly soon, probably just before room assignments go out. That will give you kind of the do's and don'ts. But a few things not to bring. We're looking for things that, you know, keep you safe. So no weapons, things that burn, or large tanks of water. Please don't bring animals unless it's approved in advance, such as a service animal. But also don't bring everything you own. A lot of people want to try to get everything in there, but remember, your room isn't super large and you're going to be sharing it with somebody else. So bringing everything you own may make it very hard for you and your roommate to live in there. So remember that you are sharing this space. So you need to make sure that you're making room for the other person, and really focus on the essentials. What are those things you know, how many pairs of tennis shoes do you need? How many sweatshirts do you need? You may not need everything, but really focus on those essential. And then feel free to mail or ship the items about 10 days before you plan to arrive. That way you can make sure that it's here and it's waiting for you for those who want to ship and aren't going to be bringing everything in a car. Okay, so some things to bring. Bring a face covering or more than one. Bring your toiletries, sheets. We generally will recommend twin XL for sheets. Blue tape / command strips for decorations. You might want to have a fan, laptop and accessories, various study materials, you know, a few plates and bowls and things like that. Some under the bed storage is very helpful. And then anything that you and your roommate decide on. Also, as part of your toiletries, I would bring some kind of shower shoes. You know, you are, even though we clean the showers and we will be doing extra attention on cleaning the showers, it's good for you to have that. I would also suggest a thermometer, but really focus on the essentials of what you want to bring.
Okay, so move-in appointments. So our move-in timeframe is going to be August 31st to September 4th. And starting on August 3rd, students will need to go into the housing portal to select a move-in date and time. Appointments will be available to students from out of town first, and students will receive an email when they're available to go in and select a bed space. So we're being very intentional on what our move-in appointment selection is going to look like. We understand that a lot of people are coming from further away, and we understand that, you know, given our situation, what we're still trying to figure out our occupancy, that a lot of people have to make decisions based on travel. So we are going to be intentional with the further away someone's address is that was filled out on our housing portal. They will go in first to select a time to move in, and then we'll get closer and closer to the Seattle area. But again, that's going to run between August 31st and September 4th. Our appointment slots are going to be between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. And appointments are going to be staggered to provide physical and social distancing for families and to avoid long lines and crowds and things of that nature. We do want to make it clear here that any student who does not go in and select an appointment will be assigned one on August 14th. So we really encourage everyone to log on and select a time slot when you're able to avoid being assigned one on August 14th, because unfortunately at that point, we're gonna have very little wiggle room to adjust anything because people will have already selected time slots up to that point. And again, to enhance physical distancing, there's not gonna be too much wiggle room. So please go in and select one during your assigned time. And if you do need to change your appointment, if space is available and we're able to, you can contact our office. But again, there's gonna be very little wiggle room there. And then just to give a little bit more information on the move-in process itself, this slide gives you essentially a step-by-step outlook on what it's going to look like. So you'll arrive to campus and you'll go to your assigned residence hall. You'll be able to park in unloading zones. There'll be signs and there'll be people to help direct you in case you may be lost. But there is an unloading zone to where you can unload stuff from your car if you arrive to campus in your personal car. At your appointment time, you will be able to go to your residence hall front desk. The DA or desk assistant will greet you. They'll ask you for your name and ID. You will then be issued your room keys and your Seattle U ID card at the front desk of your residence hall. You can also check out a red cart, like what you see in this picture here, if you need to get items into your room into 1 or 2 trips. Again, you'll be able to unload your vehicle in a designated parking lot. You'll be able to go to your room, unload. We do advise people to go and just unload your stuff and then unpack later for traffic congestion and things like that. So we ask you to focus on unpacking your stuff after you unload it. And then you'll get a second load if you need to. We are asking families to be mindful for the elevator usage. We are asking for 1 family per elevator, again, to enhance physical and social distancing. And we are asking people to wear face coverings when you're not in your room. So anytime you're doing your move-in process and you're not in your actual room, please remember to wear a face mask.
Okay, a little bit about the Seattle UID, because we did mention it. At check-in, we'll issue your Seattle UID, but we can't do this if you do not upload your photo to the Seattle UID system in advance. So at this point, you should have already received an email to your SU email with instructions on how to do this. If you can't find the instructions, please contact the service desk at seattleu.edu. And they can resend you the email so that you can do this. But you'll need your ID so that you can get in and out of the building, because all of our buildings are card access to all the different areas. And it also serves as your dining card, so you won't be able to access meal plans. So please make sure that you do this soon so that we can have your ID ready and waiting for you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about important dates that are on the horizon. August 3rd is the next most significant date for all of us. It's on that day that we should be releasing room assignments. We should be opening the door to make move-in appointments available. And that's also a day where we will have another housing drop-in session. It's just us talking about our stuff. This will be drop-in session number 2 of 2, and we invite you back. for another visit with us as you have questions. I'm not going to read off the rest of these dates to you, but I will mention again that we are recording this program, and we will post this session will be posted on the orientation program website, and we will also post the questions that we have received during the registration process and those that we're fielding today in real time, responding to those through the Zoom webinar chat space. Just a couple of closing remarks about conversations that we encourage to have happen between students and families. We know how important this next event is going to be for the family and for parents, you know, for your student. It's amazing how time flies. I've had 2 children who attended college, and it's a pretty amazing time. And this is even more unique given all that we're dealing with right now with the pandemic. So have really frank conversations, you know, about finances, about communication. It's all about communication at the end of the day. The transition that you're going to face as a family, those that are left behind, and the student who is transitioning probably for the first time away from home base. Get to know your roommates if you have one, because that's still an open question. We know too that for most of our students, this is going to be the first time that they've had a roommate, and that you'll be sharing a bath and a shower in our traditional style residence halls. So it's going to be real different. But what will happen is that you will meet people that will be in your life for the rest of your life. You will have folks that will be lifelong friends. You're going to be connected in ways that you cannot imagine until you actually have that experience. It's important for you both to know, the family unit and the student, that there are resources on this campus that are designed specifically to help you in your transition and in your experience while in Seattle. The Student Health Center is really an exceptional facility and service to our students, and the Counseling and Psychological Services Department is another great resource for students that have personal circumstances that they need some additional skilled help with managing and navigating. And then there's just hundreds literally of clubs and organizations that you can get involved with and become more engaged and connected to the campus community, this environment, and the college experience at Seattle University. And we are here as a department staff. We are here 24/7. And we are, as I said at the start, excited and thrilled to have you joining our family in just a few weeks' time. And we look forward to sharing that experience with you in the years ahead. So I think where we need to go now is to the questions that that were filed before we actually started the program today. As I said before, we're also recording the program, and we're making note of the questions, and we're trying to answer those in real time. Some of these have already been touched on, so I won't dwell on some of these. The first question is mine, has to do with the first year live-on requirement. As Tim has said, we're being very lenient on this requirement. We're encouraging students to, especially those that are closer in, to seriously consider. I mean, we'd love to have you on campus, but if it's more convenient and it's a better decision for you to live at home and commute in, then please do that. You do need to file an exemption for the live-on requirement. That exemption form is on the housing portal. And so please get those filed. We have just over 100 or so students that have requested exemption. I don't think we've turned anybody down. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you on that question, but don't fret about it. Next question is for Tyler. Tyler, please take that one about housing and decision-making and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the question is there a point at which Seattle U or housing may say, sorry, we'll have to limit freshman housing and your student will have to commute? So the answer to that is currently the university is reevaluating the decision to make the residence halls either single occupancy or double occupancy. So that's where we're at right now. But should the decision be made to only have singles, all students will be placed in singles. And if the decision is to make the halls single occupancy, there will be a decision on which resident population we will house. And we don't have an answer for that right now. That is something that we are continuing to evaluate to see which specific student population will be housed on campus. But as soon as we find that information out, we will send that communication as fast as possible.
Let me take the next one. There's a question from a family in Auburn. The question is there a point where the university might say, you know, we're going to limit the number of freshmen who are living on campus and students who live closer in need to commute? And what would that point be in time? That is a possibility. We strongly believe that if we are going to move to singles, that our primary objective is to house the first year student class. And then other students that have to be here because of experiential learning that they are required to complete to fulfill their degree requirements. A couple examples would be folks that are working in labs and of course our nursing program students as well. So yeah, again, this really kind of connects to the live-on requirement. You're pretty much free to make that decision, but we'd like to see the first year student body living in residence because it creates a lot of really good connections for new students to the community. Maybe a corollary to that is, well, what about the upper division students who may not have housing offered if we go to single occupancy? We have been working with local innkeepers in the city within a mile to a mile and a half of the campus. We have identified a number of partners that have indicated a willingness to make hotel housing available to our students at the same price point as living in a single occupancy apartment in our Murphy apartments. So we have that as a safety valve. We're not sure that we're going to need to go there, of course, as we've said, but we're working to have options for all of our students who have a need. Okay. Next question, living on campus. Question's kind of broad brush. Will we be staying in the dorms? You know, we've said this already. Yes, the university is planning on hosting as many students as we safely can in fall quarter. And we're watching all of the ambient conditions which affect us before we make a final decision about what our density will be, double occupancy or single occupancy. Next question is, what phase are we in King County? I mentioned earlier, we're in phase 2 and of a 4-phase model. And we are in a holding pattern right now in phase 2 until the end of the month. And then the state will evaluate whether or not applications will be accepted for areas to move beyond phase 2. Next question has to do with medical insurance. Full-time undergraduates are required to have health insurance, but may waive the health insurance plan, the student health insurance plan, if they have an equivalent privately held insurance. If you have not had, have shown proof of having insurance, then you will be obligated to pay for the university provided insurance through Aetna. Next question, curious about orientation activities between move-in and class start. That was answered in chat. I believe I saw that pop up. The full schedule is still pending. It'll be available on the orientation website. Again, we're in that middle ground between safely programming and bringing groups of a certain size or not together. But there definitely will be an onboarding program different, but such as it is, given what the state of play is for us socially and in the higher education environment, really all over the country. Next question has to do with the academic environment and classes. And Tim, would you take that, please?
So for students who are curious about like when they'll get their class schedules, yesterday a letter was sent out to students to their SU email address regarding their classes and their class schedules. It may not have their full class schedule in there, but you may go to the myseattleu.edu portal and go to the student planning tab for more information regarding your schedule. If you need additional information than what you can find on there, please feel free to contact your advisor or the Bellarmine Advising Center.
Very good.
I think the next one is, how will assignments work? Do we get to pick the building? From there, do we input preferences? And I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, but students have already put in their preferences. So when you filled out your application, you had questions that some relate to your roommates. That are the questions like, what time do I get up? What time do I like to go to bed? That may change, but at least gives us an idea. There was also an area for additional information in case there were some specific needs that you had. But that's where you put in your preferences for buildings, room types, all of that. And so we base what we do on that, but sometimes this particular floor, that particular area, it is based on space availability, because year to year, some people will ask more for this particular building or that particular building. But what we really focus on is making sure that we get compatible roommates. That's like our highest priority. As well, when will we find out what dorm we'll be in? So our plan is to send out room assignments and roommate assignments on August 3rd. So that'll be on the housing portal. You know, and then our decisions are going to be made with health and safety of our resident population in mind. And we are looking at the different guidelines from King County and the state of Washington to make sure that we're housing our students in a safe manner. Okay, I think the next one is Tyler.
Yeah, so the next question is, how do we request a single, and is there a higher cost for a single room? So at this time, single rooms, assuming that we are going double occupancy, single rooms will be given based on a need and space availability. So right now on the housing application, students are not able to preference a single room just because in any standard year other than this year, students would either be in doubles or triples. So that's not something that you can proactively go in and preference on your application. However, if you do feel that you need a single based on a medical need, a medical need or accommodation, you can reach out to the Disability Services office and you'll do an intake appointment with someone in their office. And if they feel that you do need a single room, they'll send a memo over to our office and then we'll make the assignment in one of our residence halls. But for right now, you're not actually able to preference that on your application. I have the next question. So will students have single rooms? We've touched on this a little bit already. So we're currently reevaluating what the decision is based on double and single occupancy. But once we find out, we'll let you know immediately. So I have the next couple of questions. So our next one is, if I cannot find a roommate at this time, will I be randomly assigned one? And when will I know when I have a roommate? So we touched on this a little bit in our presentation. It's not required to select a roommate. If you don't do that, when we do our assignments, we'll match you up as best as possible based on your profile questions or the answers to those questions. And you will know when we release our assignments on August 3rd. And then the next one, again, related to roommates. Who is my roommate and where do I see who that person will be? Again, you can choose one, or we'll assign you one based on your preferences or your answers to your questions. And you won't be able to see that information until August 3rd, but that will be visible on the housing portal. You'll be able to see the person's name and Seattle U email address as well. So you can start to talk to that person once you officially see them as a confirmed roommate. And the next question will go to Suanne.
The next question is, what are some tips to coexist well with your roommates? And so we are encouraging roommates to talk in advance to figure out what to bring. And then upon arrival, we have roommate agreements that RAs will facilitate a conversation around so that roommates can start to think about the norms that they want within their room. We think that it's really important to get to know your roommate. And so once you know who your roommate is, we encourage you to spend some time to get to know them. And if conflicts occur down the road, RAs are available to help out with mediations. The next question is, will more showers be added? Unfortunately, we're unable to change the physical structure of our building, so that will not be a possibility.
Yeah.
The next question is Tim's.
And so the question after that, the next two questions kind of get it. It's how to ensure shared bathrooms safely. How will social distancing work in dorm bathrooms? And so the CDC recommends shared bathrooms should be cleaned regularly using EPA-registered disinfectants twice per day to clean and disinfect all the areas such as laundries, facilities, but this also includes bathrooms and frequently touched areas. SU is cleaning shared restrooms and showers and disinfect with both hospital grade and EPA registered disinfectants. We're also using the electrostatic disinfectant equipment at least twice daily. And I say at least because in many areas, or if we've seen that there's been a lot of usage in a particular bathroom, we will do additional sweeps throughout the day, and particularly include some of those high touch point cleaning areas. But with that electrostatic disinfectant, they can walk in and disinfect an area in a very, very short period of time. In addition, the university is looking at options to provide some lower occupancy usage of the bathroom. So this may include where somebody has to basically put that someone's in the bathroom. You know, they put a marker and then each bathroom would have a maximum number of people. They are looking at some different options. Once we have what that looks like, we will roll that out to students so that they will know. But we also suggest students to bring shower shoes and report if they think a bathroom may need additional cleaning. We will get our custodial up there immediately. So those are some of the things that we're doing, but the university is still looking at additional options. To how to ensure social distancing with a roommate. So you and your roommate are part of a household. So you won't necessarily be physically distancing from them. But what we do ask is when you and your roommates or roommate are leaving your room, you're going to always be wearing a mask. And that you won't be allowed to have visitation, so other people in that room. So one of the ways that we provide some of the physical distancing is by lowering the number of people that may normally be in your room and holding it to just you and your roommate. Now, if we go with singles, you will still not have visitation in those rooms during this time, but that will be one more way. So I think the next one, plan for social distancing in the dorms. Suanne, I think that one was you, but I think we may have answered most of those questions.
Yeah, I think we covered this earlier, but students will be required to wear face coverings outside of their room. They will not be allowed to have visitors in place until further notice. And this means even you can't have people from down the hall come over to your room. And this will be really important for us to not, to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. And the next question is, will students have access to kitchens in their own residence halls to cook their own meals? In buildings where we have community kitchens, as we mentioned, all common spaces will be closed. And so this means that community kitchens will also be closed, and so students will not have access to them until they're reopened. The next question is about space under the bed for storage drawers. If beds are partially lofted, and it depends on the bed and how high you loft it. And so the highest settings for most of our beds will allow for about 2 feet of clearance. So you may also request to have your beds bunked, but you should consult with your roommate. And if you are requesting to have your bed bunked, you'll need to go through our facilities work order system. The next question is about working with vendors to purchase sheets and towels. And so we definitely invite students to get your own room supplies from any vendor that you want. However, we do have partnerships with Bed Bath & Beyond through the University Campus Store.
Okay, are students who live farther away moving in first? So the answer on that is not necessarily. Students will be able to select their move-in appointments. So students from farther away will have first option to select their move-in appointments, but not everyone who's from farther away will want to move in on the first day or the second day. But we will give you that option and availability to it early. And move-in is going to start August 31st, and we'll have for the 4 days after that for new students. But you will have that opportunity to pick your appointment time to make sure that that works with your schedule. So the next one was planning for parents traveling, moving in with their students. I think that's part of the appointment piece. So again, you get to select your appointment time. Flying versus driving there. So families are gonna some will fly, some will drive. I don't necessarily recommend a particular one, whichever works best for you, for your planning purposes. We don't really make a recommendation one way or the other on that. Tyler.
Yeah, so our next question, when does the sign up for move-in appointments for out-of-state students open? Again, that is August 3rd. It's like, Tim, you're up next.
So how does the move-in process work? And I think we answered that in the presentation, but basically you will arrive. If you're driving or in a taxi, you'll pull up, you'll go to the load unload zone, you'll go to the residence halls, you'll check in at the front desk, and then hopefully you get your keys and your card, and then you'll get all your items up to your room. The really important piece is making sure that you have an appointment and that you come as close to that appointment as possible, so that we can stagger out the number of people who are there. The other piece is also making sure that you're showing up with 1 to 2 people to help you, depending on what you need. But in years past, many people have brought an entire family. We are not going to be able to accommodate that this year. So I think the next question, this is my biggest question, is when the move-on date is. We are coming from the East Coast, need to buy our tickets. So if you're really concerned about a particular move-in date, please contact our office. We do have a way to assign some appointments ahead of time for people who have a need for that. But also keep in mind, we're going to have many, many appointments every single day. Students will be able to change their appointments to make sure that it works well for them and their family. But if you do have a concern about that, please contact us in the housing office, and that's at housing@clu.edu, and we can assist you with an appointment. How does a student normally send their stuff to Seattle? Shipping it, bringing it on the airplane, buying stuff in Seattle? And I would say all of the above. There are students who will ship it, and they will also bring it with them, and some who will buy it when they're here. What I would suggest is not trying to bring everything and realizing you want to get into the room and kind of feel the room for a little bit before you decide, oh, do I need this extra thing or do I need that extra thing? It's always easier if you want to then have your parents or a family member send something later on. as opposed to if you have it there, then you have it there and it takes up space in your room. But students will do all of those different ways to get things into their room. Let's see. We will not be renting a car, so can we ship? Yes. And as we said, you can ship. And what we would suggest is that you ship 10 days in advance of your arrival. For some of you who may be a little uncertain, are you coming on the 30th or the 31st or the 1st? You know, it's approximately 10 days. So before you arrive, and then it will be at your residence hall front desk when you get here. So the next one is, what happens to stuff in the dorm if you go 100% online for Thanksgiving? And what we will do, if for some reason we have to go to 100% online, if the national climate or the local climate gets to that point, we will work with students and families on flexible move-out schedules. We have actually been doing that for our students in March, who left in March, and I think we're down to about our last 20 students who still have a few items in room. But we will work on a flexible move-in or move-out schedule to make sure that we're not putting our students at risk. I think, David, I think you're the next one.
Yeah, the next section has to do with student health and personal safety. I've got a question for Michelle Etchart. Michelle, we've got about a dozen questions left on the script. Do we have time to just keep on going?
We can definitely keep going.
Great, thank you. Okay, question is, are they, students, allowed off campus during the pandemic? Students are not restricted from going into the city. And it's a practical thing, right? I mean, there's just no way for us to monitor that kind of thing. That's where the education about being careful, face coverings, being careful, you know, all of that is in play, and they need to use all those tools when making a decision about leaving the campus proper. Next question is, will we be required to bring our own face masks and coverings? You will be required to wear a face mask or covering basically at all times except in the privacy of your bedroom. So yes, bring as many face coverings as you need, depending upon how frequently you do laundry. So I imagine many students are going to bring, you know, a half a dozen or so, maybe more. But yeah, it's going to be a requirement. There will be signage all over campus. Visitors will be intercepted, so to speak, at a visitor center. There will be a health screening that will take place, not only for visitors, but for everyone within the university community. There's an app that will be made available to all of us on campus, and we are to record daily our health status. And if someone is feeling unwell, then they should stay away. Okay, next question is, will students be going in and out of the dorms for in-person classes and mixing with others outside of their dorm family? Isn't there a higher risk of contracting COVID? There will be coming and going, there's no doubt. And a marker for families and students to look at is, what does your class schedule look like in terms of its mix? What are you taking online, virtually? What's going to be made available to you? What will your face-to-face courses look like? And you make a decision about that mix in advance of starting fall quarter. Yeah, if you've got face-to-face classes, classes will be smaller in size because of physical distancing within the classroom space, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, take a close look at your class schedule. Yeah, and there is risk, but if people do the basics, you know, we've all heard this for the last 5 months, you know, washing hands, coughing in your arm, face coverings, being mindful of your body condition, that kind of thing, you mitigate the risk very, very largely. What testing isolation plans do you have to ensure students stay safe? I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. We have set aside a residence hall, a small residence hall that will be used for situations where students who need to self-isolate. This would be for persons, isolation is for a person who's been tested positive for COVID or who needs to be separated from the general population pending the outcome of a test. Individuals who've had exposure and need to be quarantined in a single occupancy configuration, they could actually quarantine in place. We also have a program established with our dining services company, Chartwell's, that food can be and would be delivered to students where they live, should that be a need. So yeah, we have those plans identified and a way to separate people who need to be separated and a process to keep people in place where we have that option available to us. Another question is, how is illness handled? If a student is too sick to really care for themselves, but not so sick that they need a hospital, is there a sick bay you send them to? Well, the Student Health Center is here to help with the diagnostic, part of that question. A student who, there's regular flu too, right? There's common colds, that kind of thing. And we always encourage students to be mindful of how they're doing physically, and if they are contagious or they feel that they are or are susceptible, that they self-separate, if you will, quarantine from the general population. We're frankly outnumbered. We have about 70 residential life staff and on a good day, 1,800 students. So we really have to rely on students being mindful of how they're doing themselves and then making appropriate decisions given the environment in which they find themselves. Another question, if one roommate is very ill, do they still bunk together? Well, if they're very ill, we have the option of separating students. If it's a typical cold, folks generally kind of figure that out as roommate pairs. But if somebody has been tested positive for COVID, we do have options to separate individuals and would make that happen as quickly as we can. Another question is, will out-of-state domestic students need to quarantine before going to residence halls? We have no guidance that would require that. Students who are coming to us internationally, there is a quarantine period that we would work with those who are currently out of country. We're really not expecting very many international students who are coming into the country. The international students that we currently have will be able to take their courses online, or they're already here. It would be new students coming out of the country where a quarantine period would be a part of their experience. And that would be essentially a 14-day period. And they would self-quarantine in their space, in their residence hall space. Okay, Tim, the next question has to do with billing and refunds.
Okay, so the university, so it was refund of housing money if students have to leave due to COVID themselves or because of classes go online, dorms closed. The university is actively monitoring the COVID-19 pandemic and recognizes students' housing plans may change or evolve throughout the summer. Seattle University will not charge housing cancellation fees for residents whose circumstances will not allow them to live on campus or necessitate their presence in housing. during the 2020-21 academic year. And if we have to close down in the middle of a quarter, the university will make some accommodation for that, but it's hard for me to guess based on the specific circumstances. But we did process refunds for spring quarter when we had to close this last year for both housing and meal plans.
Tyler, do you see the question regarding where to pay for tuition and housing?
Yes, I do.
Could you take that, please?
Yeah, so the question is, where do we go to pay for tuition and housing fees? So you would pay housing fees on SU Online. So housing charges are part of the overall tuition and fees that students pay to Seattle University. So housing and meal plan charges are not something that are paid separately. It's holistically paid to Seattle U. The current plan is to have bills posted to student accounts towards the end of the last week of July, first week of August. Students should get in the habit now of checking their student email accounts if you haven't been doing so already, because once bills do post, you will get an email notification. And again, you'll be able to log on to SU Online to look at all of that and then pay.
Okay, so the next series of questions are on dining. I said, what are the meals like? Well, dining has a variety of different stations and food types. And because our plans are all declining balance, all the food is a la carte. So you can kind of pick and choose as opposed to having to get this particular meal. You can take like this piece over here and this piece over there. So you can pick and choose what you want. So it's not all one thing. It's what you want. And I would also suggest, if you really want to talk to another student, find out what other students think about our food. Don't necessarily take my word for it. I think some of it is very good, and the Cave in particular always has a soft spot for me, and I think they've done a great job with renovating and upgrading those meal options there. What kind of hot meals will students have? If most of the items are grab and go or not made to order, will they mostly have to go off campus to get hot meals? Hot meals will still be offered at most of our locations. The variety may change a little bit to accommodate various needs and expediency, but no need to go off campus. We are exploring different opportunities to also partner with various food trucks and other local vendors to maximize student options. Students will also be able to use the app to order ahead, particularly for a lot of their hot meals. A lot of students already do that, but I think with the current environment, that will become even more important. And there will be some options for food delivery to their buildings. How are food allergens handled with food service? Food service actually has a station, and it's called Thrive Without 9 Station at Cherry Street. And they will continue with that station. They offer hot meals, they offer grab and go, and in the Cave, they have grab and go that has labeling, whether it's gluten-free or dairy-free or different pieces. So that is still available. How will social distancing work in the dining halls? So as we have said before, Seattle U will be following all the CDC and local guidelines, including reducing seating, capacity limits for areas, line staging, the shielding, requiring students to wear masks. But also, I think really a big piece is also the online ordering and the grocery delivery service. And there's going to be a lot more enhanced grab and go items. What accommodations or modifications are being made for meal plans and associated services? So our dining is going to operate in many ways as it has with some of the accommodations that we have done. But we are going to also be stressing a little bit more of the need for speed and efficiency. So again, additional grab and go, pre-ordering meals, and some limited delivery possibilities. Will students with food allergies be able to have their dietary needs met? And I think I kind of already answered that. That'll go through our Thrive Without 9, but we also do have a dietitian on campus that can work with students who may need additional assistance in planning meals.
Well, very good. That is it. We've covered all the questions that you had asked before we started today, and looks like our colleagues have been busy trying to answer questions in real time as the program has unfolded today. So thank you very much to everyone for being here today. Thank you to my staff. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Michelle, behind the curtain, for helping us with the production today. We may see you again if you want to drop in and see us again on August 3rd. But thank you for hanging with us today. We enjoyed our time, and as you have other questions, please reach out and let us know. Take good care. Have a great day. Thank you.